Hi everybody, this is Pramit from Digital Mafia Talkies. And the first thing that I want to tell you is that I absolutely loved Intergalactic, and I'm anybody who is coming near me, I'm telling them to watch it on September 30th, no matter what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you
man.
very much for loving the
Thank you.
show.
Thank you.
And my first question to you is, Fletcher, is that like how did you zero in on this particular animation style? Because adult-oriented kind of movies have a particular style in American media, and the romantic stuff has kind of the and it's kind of still synonymous with Disney. So how did you kind of get this handheld kind of expressionistic stuff?
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. So for starters, we wanted to make it feel like a piece of art. That Intergalactic as an album, the album's a piece of art, like an expression of an artist. And then visually, our story, for all of us, and we all said this like right from the outset, that it had to feel like you could see the artist's hand and you could feel the artist's hand. And, because the story is about two artists, for me, it was, imperative from the start that it had to feel like a painting. And so, like, you see, my entire life, I've always bought, the art of books. For every Disney, Pixar movie, I have them racked up at home, and I always flick through them, and I'm like, why didn't the film look like that? Because the concept art is so beautiful, and I think that's something for me from the outset that I wanted to make a show that the concept art, where you see the artist's hand was on screen. So for that, that was the first step, and then secondly, it had to feel very relatable, unique, and like something we'd never seen before. And like I know painted CG has been out there for a number of years, like in short films and in with Arcane, those guys are doing some fantastic work. And I think that we wanted to make our own version of it, our own style that was different again on a whole nother level. And I think that's sort of the impetus for us was to make a unique piece of art that felt like the human hand was on screen the whole time.
But then you also kind of switch up the style by going into anime and kind of much more comic booky stuff. So for like Kai and Downtown Pat and even Karina. So how did you kind of
Yeah.
understand that?
So the writers, and like you talked to that, is that it was really a point of view, right? You want to show a point of view of a character.
Yeah, it was. How do you know? We in the process we were really trying to figure out exactly like Ian and I don't come from animation, so we were figuring out like how to use this great medium that was kind of like unlocking to us as we were like, oh wait, since it's animated, we could do this. And then as we did that, we just thought about these characters and their different like perspectives so much that it felt like, well, in live action, when a character tells you a story, what are your options? Your options are to go to some sort of flashback. That's pretty much all your options are. But what happens when a character can tell you the story and the story feels like something else? So picking the different animation styles were kind of our secret love letter to the fact that we were getting to play around in this medium.
Yeah, like
you know
like
what I mean?
like it's a point of view to make sure that with Kai and with Karina with their stories that it's not Jabari's point of view, and that's what with animation it's so key. For me as a director, that has always been like I'm not going to be put in a box, right? When we can do whatever we want, it's like move it out. And the great thing with an audience watching an animated show is your reality is already suspended right from the outset. You're like, oh, I'm somewhere else. And so you're allowed to pull people into different places in live action you can't do, and then pull them back, and it feels okay.
And like you were saying before that the movie is kind of like a visual album. So what was the process like of making a romantic film, but also marrying it with Kid Cudi's music?
So Kid Cudi had already had recorded most of the music prior to Maurice and I starting on the writing process. And so we sat with Cudi. We had sort of like a sort of de facto writer's room with Cudi and Maurice and myself, and we just talked about themes and characters and what he wanted it to be, and sort of how to write. It was really interesting. It was sort of inverted as far as how you put music in a film, right? It was I think for me, I don't know, Maurice, how you feel, but I thought there was something actually really exciting about kind of doing it backwards, and through the constraints came so much creativity because it was like, okay, well, we know that we have this song. It's called "Willing to Trust." We know what it's about thematically. How we have this character. How do we get them here? So I thought it was really kind of, it was cool. It was different, and I loved it actually. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, it was really the thing that was great about it is I remember when Scott first played the song, like the "Willing to Trust" was the first song he played. He played me "Willing to Trust," "Do What I Want," and Angel were the first 3 songs that he
Same.
played me.
Same.
And when he played them for me, it was like this, like, oh my gosh, you're making a love album. And he didn't know it at the time. He was just like, these are the songs that I'm kind of been thinking about. So then when we went back and when me and Ian started working together and we were like, okay, this is kind of what the songs are about. This is kind of what the show is about. And then he went, wait, I'm making a love album. And then it's like, so then it kind of was this rolling thing that happened in real time. So the music was the driving force always. And then it was like they became these tent poles in the story. So it's like you kind of are just driving from, you're swinging from vine to vine. And then we were all really adamant that there would be no music that was like passable or like overlaying. Like the music is the event. So you have to build the story like almost like you're doing a Broadway play. You have to build the story so that the crescendo of the moment is this musical thing, and then you can keep going. So that was kind of the
And what was
fun
so
part.
unique, obviously, for any film, let alone an animated show like this, is that having these songs from the outset meant we knew what to feel. And obviously, it's an emotional job that we do to make other people feel something, feel an emotion. And so to have these songs from the outset means I knew how I needed to make a scene feel. And we had these tent poles that were written where they would land in the show. We had a couple of songs on the way, but that was a huge leap. When I heard the songs and I connected with it, I was like, oh, I know how to visualize this now, so I could start to see it. Whereas often when you just have words on a page, you have a larger leap into making a show, whereas we had these songs as the words are being written. And so all of a sudden the visuals, were much easier to piece together.
All right. I'm afraid that's all the time I have. It's a pleasure talking to you, all of you, and I wish you all the best for this film.
Thank you for
you
your
very much.
time.
Good to meet you, brother.
Thank you for the kind words.
Hi, this is Pramit from Digital Mafia Talkies. And the first thing that I wanted to let you know is that I absolutely love Intergalactic, and I'm recommending it to everybody that comes around me, and I'm saying that they have to watch it on September 30th.
Oh,
Um,
thank you, man.
and my first question to the both of you is that, like, what attracted you to this particular project and gave you the confidence to back it as executive producers?
Gosh, Scott is the North Star in how this all came together and what the vision could be and how this could all be realized. And it really started with him. He had written the music for Intergalactic, had the idea of creating a new narrative for what the intersection of visuals and music can be, and had all of these ideas together of what Intergalactic could be. And then we had this incredible experience where Kenya Barris comes in and brings in the idea of animation. Then you're hiring Ian Edelman and Maurice Williams to showrun, and they had such brilliant concepts about how the scripts could move. And then Fletch Moulds comes in to direct the animation. And there was such it was just so interesting because it started with this idea right here from Scott and then touched 350 different people around the world and ended with Intergalactic. And I think the true source of all of that and the camaraderie that came alongside all of these individuals who touched it and made it their own and made the vision bigger all just started right here with Scott.
Yeah, man, he's a creative genius. At this point, I'll follow that man to war because I just trust, he has some outrageous concepts, Intergalactic, and you see what it looks like. There's it's absolutely, I wouldn't even, at this point, I wouldn't call it luck. It's just one of those things. It's just like it happened. It's gonna happen. What do you need? Use my brain power. I'm here. I'm in the service industry. Let me know.
So I'm assuming that Kid Cudi voicing Jabari was like a lock from the get-go. But what was the hiring process for the rest of the absolutely stacked cast? Because it also depends how the animation is going to look like, the character designs and everything.
Yeah, that's a great question. So much of it was Scott bringing his friends to the table.
Yeah.
So some of the first conversations were Timothy Chalamet. One of the most inspired conversations was Ty Dolla $ign as Kai, which Scott created the Kai name even off of Ty. So before he was cast, he was already thinking of him for it. And that was something he hadn't done before. And to me, I'm sure to you too, is such a highlight of the show. Yeah. And then alongside Scott, and that wasn't only to the cast, it was bringing Virgil Abloh for the fashion,
Yeah.
or Brian Donnelly Cause to bring his art pieces into the fray. So there's a lot of Scott's DNA in it.
Yeah, all Scott's relationships, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It just makes sense. The camaraderie, like Karina said
Yeah.
earlier, like it just is that DNA, that
And-
Kid Cudi DNA.
Yeah, and then for the roles outside, Carmen Cuba was our casting director, and she's the coolest. She's so immense. She's so talented, and she really just understood the vision as
Right.
well. As an example, Jessica Williams was somebody of like Carmen was like she is the girl. There was no conversation outside of her as a result of just her understanding of exactly what this should be. So a huge shout out to Carmen alongside Scott.
Carmen.
And at any point, like, did you have any apprehensions regarding some of the risque or like some of the experimental swings that Intergalactic takes, like switching up the animation style or going into psychedelic imagery? Like, what were your initial reactions to that?
Nah, I loved it. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
I'm into pushing boundaries. Like we don't want to be still. We want to push the boundaries and give like new concepts. No, there was nothing that like I had reservations about at all. It's like push it. It's animation. Push it to the limit. The toolbox is there to do it.
Yeah, one of the cute stories though for Jessica and Scott when they watch it after together, they're like, "Is it weird that we're watching ourselves have sex, but we've never?" Like it is a little, maybe a little,
Yeah.
but
And like there is a very beautiful line in the show which Ellie says, which is also very inspired because she's played by Kid Cudi's actual sister, which
Yeah.
is something like love is the easiest thing in the world that happens by accident, or it becomes real when you do it on purpose. So, what is kind of one life lesson that you want viewers to have after watching Intergalactic?
That's a great question. Well, I'll say you picked the line that I feel is the thesis of the show. That was my favorite line of the show as well, because I think that encompasses what Intergalactic is. And I think if there was a truism that you would hope to take, it is the feeling of needing to put yourself out there in a time where it's very easy to hide, ends up being what creates true human connections. And I think as an audience, the whole way through, you're wishing that for Jabari and Meadow, that they'll be able to take the leap that it requires to not lose this moment that came so easily. And wouldn't it be nice if we were all so much closer because of something like that?
Yeah. I say love is hard, but it's fair.
Mm.
Also, like, and this is can be completely my reading, is there like also a anti-dating app message in it? Because at the end of the film we kind of see in the post-credit scene we kind of see that the dating app is involved in some kind of embezzlement. So do you want like people to be more courtship like in the traditional sense and go away from dating apps?
I don't know. I think we're in this digital modern dating age. So I don't know if that's possible, but there's nothing, even like meeting friends, like that human connection.
Yeah.
You meet somebody at a bar or even like, in passing at work, and it's like, oh, this is a real connection. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't know. I think we can't get away from that.
It's almost like the thesis it applies to dating apps too. Because
Yeah.
still, even if it came easy and still stage one, you still have to make a choice for it to be
Right.
real.
Right,
So,
right.
so just another source of where the application can be from.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all the time I have. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you all, and I wish you the best for Intergalactic.
Man, thanks so
Thank you.
much.
So nice meeting you.